Hey, I'm Chad Hayes with Hayes in Oakwood, and today I'm here with Dale Jones, who I met a couple of weeks ago, and I caught him outside the bank because I noticed his car. His car happened to have been purchased in 1972 from my grandfather's store, and so I just could not help myself. I had to find him in the bank and drag him outside and just ask him all about his car. And so I knew that it was a cool story, and I knew that I wanted to get with him later and talk to him. So here we are just hanging out at his house with the car. Give me the details on the car again.
It's a 1972 Plymouth Valiant, slant six engine, and it served a beautiful purpose for my aunt. She purchased this car, and she wanted me to go pick it out. So I went to all the dealerships. It turned out Mr. Hayes was where we landed, and Mr. Hayes offers us a good deal. I was telling him a while ago, I don't have the receipt, but I've got a bunch of paperwork. The car cost $2,800 even, and so. My aunt was thrilled with her new car, but as the weeks went by, she got to where it wouldn't crank, and she took it back to the dealership. And of course, sometimes you run across a smart aleck mechanic, and one of them told her maybe she didn't know how to crank it. And of course, she hadn't been cranking a car for 50 years at least. So I told her, I said, next time it won't crank, let me see if I can crank it. And I couldn't. And I finally got it cranked, and I said, let's go to Lawrenceville with it. So I took it to the dealership, and I believe it was on a Saturday. Mr. Hayes was there, and I went in, and I told him I had a problem. And Mr. Hayes very calmly sat there and listened to me, and he said, you're telling me that this car has been in my shop 3 or 4 times and still won't crank? He said, I can assure you when you come to pick it up, it'll crank. And he said, leave the keys with me. So I left it with Mr. Hayes, and we rocked along several days, and he called my aunt, and he said, I assure you your car is A1. So we went back to get it, and it turned out that there was a faulty coil from the factory. Mm-hmm. And when the coil was replaced, that ended the problem. But Mr. Hayes apologized greatly to my aunt, and he assured her, he said, I don't think you'll ever have this experience here again. And he said, if you need us, we're here.
And that was 1972.
Yes, 1972, and the service at Hayes was super.
Oh.
And my aunt always praised Mr. Hayes for the service she received while there. And I said, from what I've heard, he looked after the rest of his customers just like that.
Sure. Well, A.D was my grandfather, and now to us he was ornery, right? And but by golly, it was all about taking care of customers,
right.
And that was when we first got started. I could tell you a story. If you look at our some of our social media, we found 2 years ago we found a bunch of 8mm film from way back then when they were first opening the stores, and in that film was my dad, Mike Hayes, holding a baby in front of the store when we opened it in 72. It was actually in 71, but our first full year was through 72. But that baby was me.
Okay.
When I was born in 71, and so this. The whole story, I know standing outside the bank, I was just grinning and grinning because I'm going through in my mind all the history that we have, there with the stores and my family and third generation and everything. It was a neat experience to meet you and talk to me about your aunt and everything else. These cars, there's not a lot of them, right?
Right.
Mopars,
right,
as we call them. And I think that some people watching this would love to know even more about the car itself. Is it all original?
It is.
It is.
I've got a little tear in the seat where it's separating after 50-something years, and I've been checking to see if I can get an upholstery person to take care of that for me, but everything in here is original.
Original.
And I've kept it serviced. And after my aunt passed away, I decided to keep the car.
Well, it's obviously running because you took it to the bank.
Yeah, that's right.
And drove it away.
Now, did your dealership start in the early 70s?
Yeah, 71 was when we opened.
Over on Scenic Highway?
On Scenic Highway.
Okay.
And before that, my grandfather and his brother had a garage on DeKalb Avenue.
Okay.
Right, and some of the pictures you see is them with the gas pumps, standing out at the gas pumps on DeKalb Avenue. And they had that forever. My dad worked in that garage and did body work for years and years and years. And then when he got an opportunity to buy the franchise to be a Chrysler dealer, he bought that store. He bought a store in Lawrenceville and then built the new building that they still are in Lawrenceville out there on 316.
Right.
So
and this one came from Scenic Highway.
Scenic Highway, where he first started. That's right. Yeah. So those were. I have no idea because I was there. But that's right. All I know is what I see on that 8mm videos
right.
that we got. But man, the years we have grown and everything. But here in that story, my grandfather, I grew up with my granddad. At that time, when I was growing up, I was in middle school and high school. He had retired and was raising Charolais cattle out in Jackson County. And that's how I knew my grandfather. I didn't really get to work a lot with him, but when he was still in the business and we had just opened the store in Oakwood, I was in middle school and I was there, the janitor, and I was picking up trash and doing that after school or in the summer. And I remember one day A.D. he came through and he said, Chad, I need you to, the dumpster, it stinks out at the dumpster, and I need you, they just dumped it, I need you to go out there and clean the dumpster. And I remember thinking, I said, Granddaddy, I don't do that. I don't think I do that. And he said, well, you do now. So those were the memories of my grandfather. He said, this is just old school. This is how we get it done. Whatever's got to be done is how we get it done. Yeah. So it was just great talking to you that day, and learning about the car and learning about. So what other stories can you tell me about from back then? Any?
Well, this car is a conversation piece now. Everywhere I go with it, somebody makes a comment about it.
Is that right?
Or somebody wants to come look at it.
I'm sure.
And I have a lot of people tell me there was a lot of these sold, and I have a lot of people say I had one of those slant six engines.
Yep.
And but the slant six is a good engine, and even though I hadn't gotten 68,000 miles, I've heard people say they put 200,000 and 300,000 miles on this engine.
Yeah.
And Plymouth put out a good product.
Yeah. Well, the Plymouths don't exist anymore as a brand. But they always made a Dodge version, and the Dodge version was the Dart. Is that
remember,
right?
Yeah.
So the Dodge.
It was about the size of this one.
Yeah. So
some of them were 2-door and some were 4-door.
Yeah.
And I was talking a little bit ago. I've got a '49 Plymouth.
Really?
And it's got 81,000 on it.
What?
And of course, it's harder to maneuver than this. It's straight drive.
Are you telling me it's back there in that barn?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna go see that.
Yeah, it's got 81,000 miles and it's a straight drive. Wow. And you were talking about going back into parts. A cousin gave it to me, gave me the car because I had looked after her finances in Roanoke, Virginia.
Wow.
And so we brought the car here and began to make sure it was mechanically sound. And we found every part we needed except one. And that was a gas tank, because I was afraid of it.
Oh.
It had been sitting so long.
Sure.
So one of my friends gave me a bunch of Plymouth books, and this was the weird story. The gas tank for a 1940 to a 48 to a 49 would fit the same car, same size tank. For the 1949 Plymouth, it had a separate tank. And from 50 on, that tank would fit all the other cars. That was the only car that had to have a unique tank.
Well, lucky you.
So my mechanic said, we played along 2 or 3 years. He said, we may have to have a tank made. I said, oh my. I said, I guess we can. So I searched Atlanta, the whole area, no tank. So I went into the shop over in Cumming one day, and he said, look in my box over there. I opened the box, there was a brand new tank. I said, okay, where did this come from?
Huh.
He said, I was playing one night on eBay, and it flashed up, gas tank for 1949 Plymouth, and he said, I jumped on it.
Yeah.
And he said, you got a new tank.
Well,
I said, well, this is a rarity.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'd had to have a tank made. But that was the only part that we had trouble getting. The rest of the parts we were okay.
You know, for years my dad, Mike Hayes, put on a car show at the Commerce Drag Strip, Mopar Meet.
Okay.
And they would have a huge, one of the biggest draws about that car show was the swap meet.
Yeah.
Where all these folks would show up with trailer loads of old parts, original parts that had taken off of cars and stuff that they knew somebody would buy. And I used to walk through that place looking for something cool, and there was nothing cool there. But I was in the minority because everybody in that swap meet thought that everything on the ground was cool. And and they all wanted to. They were trying to build up their Barracudas and their all that, and they'd come out there and there's wheeling and dealing.
Those were rare finds.
They were rare finds, and just like your mystery gas tank. They were trying to find that thing that's not made anymore.
I wasn't sure when I took the Plymouth whether I could even go through the process of finding the parts, but my cousin was a lot older than I am, and she was leaving the mountain there in Roanoke, and she called one day and said, can I give you my Plymouth? And
wow.
I said, well, make sure your children are okay with it. I said, I don't want family conflict. She said, no, I've already talked to them. Said, you've helped with my finances for years, said, I want you to have the car.
Wow.
So, but anyway.
And it runs too?
Yeah.
And
well, she had kept it. I had heard it run, but she kept it in a garage apartment there at her house. Wow. And it had been in the dry all those years. And it was bought new at a dealership in Roanoke back in the early 40s.
Wow.
And but I played with it a while. I don't drive it quite as much as I do this one because being straight shift, somebody will run over me. I can't move fast with it.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
One of my neighbors over here, it's got the old-timey horn, and I'd blow when I'd go by his house. He said, I thought I'd share with you. He said, if you decide to rob a bank, he said, I believe I'd drive one of the other cars.
Because everybody knows. That's right. That's right.
Wow. But it's a good running old car.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to take some photos of it before we leave.
But I'm nervous to get on these main roads too much with it because I said the traffic today will eat you alive.
It is getting really, I think this area here in Oakwood, Flowery Branch is really, really getting real populated. And as a testament, you're maybe selling your property here just because it's so lucrative.
It's all creeping in on us. We got townhouses against the pasture fences out on the other end.
Yeah, totally.
And so people are moving in against us pretty close.
Well, being this property being here so close to the lake is super nice. So we all got a great piece of property.
Well, the realtors and everybody says that, and if we can get an approval, I said, time changes a lot of things.
Yeah, totally. Well, Dale Jones, thank you so much for taking time to be to let us come out here and see your car and tell us the stories. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you being here, and all I can say is thanks to Hayes. This car right here is obvious that Hayes products will be around forever. So, as you can, buy a Hayes product, and thank you for watching the video today.